The most obvious thing to do when approaching a tight space is to slow down as much as needed. The tighter the space and the closer you get to the other vehicle or vehicles, the more you'll need to slow down. Stop if necessary when you're at the tightest point to best judge the distances. If you're driving an automatic transmission vehicle, keep your foot over the brake and control your speed by adjusting the pressure on the brake pedal. If you're driving a manual, accelerate very slightly while keeping your clutch depressed in case you need to brake. Judging the distance on your side is easier because it's closer to you, but judging it on the other side is a bit trickier. If the vehicle you're approaching is more or less the same size as yours, especially the same height, you should be able to see the door handles at all times. If you don't see them anymore, you might be too close. Now at this distance, you'll still have some room between the vehicles, but you should always keep a safety margin anyway. So when approaching, when you see the other vehicle's right rear light more or less in the lower right corner of your windshield, the middle of the vehicle should be more or less flush with the bottom of your passenger window. If the vehicle is higher than yours, you should see the handles a bit higher. These reference points will vary a bit, more on that later. One of the things you have to be especially aware of when passing between two vehicles are your mirrors, because they're protruding from the vehicle. If you're passing between two vehicles and one of them is a lot higher than yours, your mirror should pass under it, so you can get a bit closer to that vehicle. If your mirrors are foldable, you can also get a bit closer to the vehicle on your side and fold your mirror. Even in some situations where you have enough room, you might have the impression that it's too tight. So if there are vehicles in front of you, compare their size to the size of yours. In this case, I'm driving a compact car and the bus in front of me is a lot wider. So if it has enough room, I have enough room too. Now what's left for me to do is to center myself properly between the two vehicles and I should be okay. If there wasn't anybody in front of me, I could have checked if the truck to my left is inside his lane completely, which it is, even if it's really close to the yellow line, and I can't imagine if the car parked to my right, which is more or less the same size as mine, would fit in that space to give me an idea if I fit or not. Always try to get your vehicle as straight as possible before reaching the back bumper of the vehicle you're about to pass. If I'm in a diagonal position, I risk hitting one or both of the vehicles on my sides. Also, in situations where you're passing a vehicle where there is some movement, be aware that somebody could pop up behind it at any time. And since it's a tight spot, you'll have very little time to react. So scan the space behind the vehicle and be ready to brake at all times. Another situation where you'll have very little time to react is if someone opens the door. So while approaching, check to see if there are people inside the vehicle. In a situation like this one, if you're not sure if you have enough room, don't try to squeeze in. The light is red anyway, so nobody behind needs these few feet in front. Even if you're driving somewhere where turning right at the red light is allowed and people behind you want to do so, turning right at a red is not an obligation, it's an option. So nothing forces you to try to squeeze in there. When moving, if you spot a situation in front and you're not sure if you fit in and there are multiple lanes, be proactive. Change lanes if possible, problem solved. And if you're approaching a situation where it's obvious that there's no room at all, like here, or you're not sure if there's enough room, just turn whenever you can if possible and do a detour to get where you need to go. In driving, like with everything else in life, becoming better at something comes with experience. But one of the things that will take more time to get used to is judging distances from vehicles and obstacles that are close to the sides or in front and behind. Unfortunately, there's no magic pill for that. Variables like the size of vehicles, your size and height, and even your own depth perception will influence how you judge distances. Even experienced drivers, when they switch vehicles, especially when going from a smaller to a bigger vehicle, will take some time to adapt. So be patient, it'll come with practice. Use the references I showed you as starting points and try to practice stopping next to vehicles of different sizes in a place where you can do so, always making sure to keep a safe distance, then get out of the vehicle to get a feel for how close you are. Now, like I said earlier, and like I always say in my videos, those reference points will vary. A very short person might see this, and a very tall one might see this, while both being at the same distance from the other vehicle. So practice to determine what works well for you. If you want to get an idea of the dimensions of different categories or even individual models of vehicles, I put a link in the video description for a site that has a lot of information on that. In the next video, I'll talk about driving in tight streets. So stay tuned and thanks for watching.